welcome guys to the after show.
Hi guys.
Space
Hello.
Coast Ghost Stream episode 2. I don't know what we're going to call it. After show
portion.
1. I don't know what we're calling it yet.
The after show.
And again, this is brought to us, to you, by Rad Inc. And again, they are in Melbourne. They are on West New Haven, 760 West New Haven in Melbourne, 32901. RadIncFlorida.com to set your appointments, to set your bookings, ask questions. Just go to that website, hit the contact us. And their phone number is 321-499-3357. They're open Sunday to Saturday, so every day, 12 to 8. And coincidentally, they are our sponsor, and they are going to be our next paranormal investigation.
Oh, wow.
Some of the claims that they've had, they have seen full-bodied apparitions.
Very cool.
They've had objects thrown. When I was there getting my hand worked on.
There's a zoom in feature. That would have been like the moment, you know.
So whenever I was there getting my hand worked on, they were telling me what was happening. They, I don't know if you've ever been in there. It's like one big open area, and then there's a hallway down, and like a little reception area. They were in the reception area, and a pin came flying from somebody's station at the opposite end of the big area into the reception with nobody in the back.
Huh.
And one of the artists came from reception into the big room when nobody had been in there, and his inks were set up like I'll do a little picture.
Geez.
Here's my sketch. There's his table for like where he sets up his inks and caps. It's a square. He came in. There were inks set up in each corner.
Okay, in the four corners of the table.
And one in the middle.
And then one in the middle. So like a
A
number
square
5 on a die.
With somebody had just set up inks on there.
Huh.
That's cool.
There was one instance they said where they were in the little break room area, and they had to chase what they thought was somebody outside, but there was nobody there. And they saw somebody peek around the corner, and then peek back, and they went and chased it out there, and there's nobody there.
Very cool.
Well, that's crazy that they have full body manifestations, because that's like something I've always wanted
like
to
the
witness.
Grail.
Yeah, I've never witnessed that. I've seen things off of my peripheral vision, you know, that seemed like full figures where I think somebody's right there, and I turn and there's nobody there. But yeah, that's some crazy.
That's like
energy.
the holy grail of paranormal investigation.
Yep.
I have only seen something like that once.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I guess twice. The St. Albans thing that I discussed the first episode, where St. Albans is an old sanitarium in Virginia. And I came upstairs to the attic, and I turned the corner, and the walls are so dilapidated, there's no drywall. They're just studs and what's behind the studs. I came up and around the corner, and I saw what looked like a gnarled female face staring back at me, and I'm Mr. Pareidolia. So I was like, that has to be something back there that's making me think it's a female face. So I did a double take. I turned around. I went into the wall. There's nothing in the wall. Nothing that's anywhere near that shape. It's like a little locker-style padlock on the floor. It's nowhere near where I saw it. And then one of the investigators that was with me was like, "That's the only time I've ever seen you spooked, because you're able to explain everything away when it happens." And like, I couldn't.
Wow.
The other time I've seen it, and it was a more clear picture, was we came down from Tennessee to Florida. We were staying for vacation at my grandparents', and I got stuck sleeping in bed with my grandma. And I roll over, and there's a man. The way my brain processed it was like he was glowing, sort of. And I saw all the features, saw what he was dressed as. He was looking at my grandma, looking at a box, looking at her, looking at a box. And me being terrified, I just, I don't know what the hell that was.
Oh, no.
He's back.
No.
Me being terrified, I just rolled over and scared myself back to sleep finally. And when I woke up, I described it to my grandma, and I was like, "This is what he looked like." And she pulled out a box of pictures, and she's like, "Oh, do you see anything that resembles?" And after 20 pictures or so, I said, "Oh, that's the guy. That's who I saw." And she's like, "That's your great grandpa. You're the only child he would ever hold."
Huh.
That's kind of sweet though. That's endearing.
That's the only full body thing I've ever really seen. And it gets because I didn't know who it was. I just saw his features, and I was able to pick him out of a lineup. I was like, "That's him."
Huh. That is interesting.
Wow.
The only thing that was closest to a full-on object or thing. I had friends come over to my house, and this was probably about 10 years ago, and they had said, and they were visiting, and the girlfriend, she goes, you know, you have a ghost in the house. And I was like, no. But she's like, yeah, it's a cat. And I was like, a cat? I was like,
of all things, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
they've been spectral creatures in different cultures.
And she goes, yeah, I see it running around. And she's like real in tune with paranormal stuff. And I'm like, wow. I was like, I've never even, never experienced that. So they stayed for a couple weeks and they're gone. So this is like 3 weeks later, and I'm getting something out of the fridge. And as I pull something out of the fridge, I see a cat. I see a black cat underneath the trunk. And at first it scared me, and I was like, holy shit, how did you get in here? And as I shut the door and I looked back, there was no cat. And I thought it had gone somewhere in the house. And so then I was thinking, okay, did I just experience that because I was thinking of ghost cats because she initially said that? Or was that like, I actually thought it was real. I saw it as a cat, like sneaking in from outside, but there was no cat. And so that has baffled me. So I'm not sure what came before the other.
Right.
Was it a ghost, or did I see something that was built because of that idea? But it was baffling.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Germany for 5 years, and the house that I lived in was older than America. The barn, they used to actually hide people in the cellar during the Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
But I remember I was home alone because I just came back from soccer practice. My family went to France for the weekend because they'd go to like a little town called Metz and stay there. So I had my buddy with me. He stayed with me while they were gone. And I remember we came down for a snack one night, and the way it's set up is like there's downstairs, there's the kitchen, there's the mud room kind of thing, where you just take your shoes off and go upstairs. I came downstairs and turned to go into the kitchen, and when I rounded, I saw a old lady standing in front of the refrigerator looking lost. I go, John, come down here. See, am I crazy? He came out, he saw it too. Like, we both described the same person. We were both looking at that person, and then she's gone.
Huh.
And then when we were moving, I described it to my landlord, and she's like, "That sounds like my mom. That used to be where she sat to sew stuff."
Wow.
So she's like, she's probably looking for her chair or her sewing stuff.
I was gonna say, no wonder she's confused. It's a totally different purpose.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I've often thought if spectral entities, if they have a sort of conscious, because their energy and and if they do have a bit of that thought process that when they were alive, and they recognize the house, they recognize the location that they're in, but they're probably confused, they're probably muddled because they don't specifically recognize stuff,
right?
And so.
Yeah, that's why we ask a lot of certain questions when we're doing investigations to see if we're dealing with a past entity and we're just hearing the voices or whatever, or if we're really kind of having a conversation with someone in the conscious, someone now. So we're always asked, how many people do you see in this room? What time is it? Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's really interesting to us too. Like we kind of want to figure out once you pass on, are you still conscious? Do you still understand everything that's going on? We like to think our loved ones do. We like to think that, if someone has a kid or someone graduates, we like to think our loved one has seen it and they process it and they love it, the same way we do. But, so that's a lot of the testing that we do when we're investigating and stuff like that to kind of see, because we're interested in that too. I want to know.
Now with the haunt business, I know with the haunt that we did in Virginia, there was a lot of bad juju that we could have brought into that haunt. Like with my particular room, I had the Satanic Temple, which if I'd have thought of it, I would have pulled up some slides from that. But even my mask that I wore, I had painted legit satanic symbols on it. The book that I had on the altar was a satanic book that I had painted in fake blood, like all the legit Satanic Temple signs and all over the walls, and I had the skulls and the bones and all of that. And I had them reciting incantations in Latin whenever they came in. Plus all the monarch, that's the wrong word. The monk chanting and stuff, like the throat songs that they used to do. I had that playing in the background on loop. It could have brought a lot of juju into that room, which probably explains why I had an anxiety attack one night in that room.
Pumping a lot of different energies in there. I don't know, man.
I got a possum pelt. I'm doing a sacrifice and all this other stuff.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
we've had some crazy stuff happen in that haunt. Like I would go in there. I went in there one morning after the haunt. Everything shut off. All batteries turned off. Everything dead. Mm-hmm. And I go up. It's upstairs in this giant warehouse. We had the whole upstairs floor. Mm-hmm. I go up. I go down our little employee hallway where like the people can't go, but we walk down. That's how we get back in buildings and rooms. I'm walking through there to get to my room because I had to fix one of the siphon pumps. I kicked it too hard and it came off. And I'm walking through. I get about halfway down the hallway and I hear, "Over here." Yeah. I turn around like, it's the voice of the owner. It's like, "Rob, where you at? Where you at?" And it just over and over here. One of the speakers had kicked on, and that's one of the things that plays whenever the haunt's going to get people confused.
Right.
Well, I have a question because we kind of touched on this briefly in the previous video, and I had questions in my mind, but I just forgot, in the previous video. But you guys have both been scarectors, is that what you call it? Scarectors and haunts and stuff like that. And you mentioned an audition process.
Yes.
So, like, what do you do in the audition process? Do you, like, fake scare, some of the people at the... Is that pretty much what it is?
It's probably different for every haunt. I know with ours, we had people that said, "Oh, we want to do it," and we had them come in. We had like a group audition kind of thing. We had the senior actors take the new people to whatever specific, we had them walk through first, so they get an idea of what room they want to be in. Take them to that room with an experienced actor. Say, "Okay, what would you do in this room?" And then they get their idea of what they want to do, and then we go, "Okay, you're going to stay here. We're going to go out, and we're going to walk the house like patrons, like somebody that's paying to go see it."
Yeah.
And then we walk through, see whatever they do. If it's good, things that they can work on. Here's, you did this wrong. Didn't so much do it wrong, but you can make it better by doing this, or don't do this. Like, when I auditioned, I threw things. That was my thing.
Perfect.
Yeah. Which is bad sometimes, because you don't know. Sometimes it gets away from you, or you throw it too hard, or you throw it in the wrong, or it breaks on the wall. And I had to work on that and figure out what else I would do in that room.
Was it kind of the same with you? Was it kind of just like a
spontaneous? It's so it's like it's a whole gamut of different audition processes, and Halloween Horror Nights, they used to do very specialized audition process where they say, "Okay, so I'm standing at the end of the room. Scare me with an object that's imaginary and become that character holding that object," right? And so, you got a chainsaw, so you come up to that person and you try to scare them without actually touching them, right? And then, like Dark Horizons was my favorite audition process in recent history because it reminded me of the old school auditioning process. And the dude that was in charge of that, David Wally, he was like, he invites you on stage, like on a theater stage, and he's like, "Okay, so you're a little child. Now, scare me," right? And so, for an acting process, that's great. So, you become a little child or whatever, and you're like, whatever, like demonic kid or something like that. And then he goes, "Okay, now you're larger than life, and you're a shadow. Now, what creature does that shadow belong to?" And then, so different, you do different characters, different creatures, and they want to see how you do at a drop of a dime, changing it, and if you can scare that person interacting. And they even had like a pre-built partition of the haunt where they would have groups going through, and then you would scare different ways. And so it's been a wide range of audition processes. I've been on some where they just line you up and they just tap you out based on if you fit in the costume. Like, they don't even care if you can act or anything. So,
Well, has the process changed a lot? Because you mentioned you said back in the old ways of auditioning. So obviously things have changed. Like, you can't touch people now, right? So that's a new thing.
Right.
Well, in some houses you can. If you do, like, in Virginia, if you sign the VIP waiver, we could do whatever we wanted to you.
Yeah. No, that's right. It has changed. Like, I remember Horror Nights. Like,
Didn't they used to have like the smell of burning flesh like going in the background?
Well, they have some smell pots like that, but their rules
So detailed.
were not as laid out as it is now. Like right now, you know, of course, you can't follow somebody, you can't cross the path of the line going through. Got to scare forward. You can't touch. You know, those are all specific rules. You know, due to liability. But then some houses, you know, don't have those rules and regs, and it's great. Like, I love those houses that don't. You know, because of course, you want to keep safety, you know, of yourself and the guest forefront.
Right.
But I like crossing the line. I like interacting with the guests and getting within that personal bubble space that makes them feel uncomfortable. You know, and that's all good scare tactics. So it has changed, but there's still some houses out there that are, you know, they especially the experimental houses.
Well, have you ever been hit though?
Yeah, many times.
Like, I've heard so many stories of people that
go through and they get scared. They automatically, it's just a
like
reflex. They
yeah.
throw a punch.
You had before?
Oh yeah, and you have
Most
to be.
characters have.
You have to be fast. You know, like
You can't react the way that you would. And,
Right.
And, like if somebody hit you in the street, you can't just punch them back.
Right.
You got to stay in character and back off. Or, like in Virginia, we had cameras in every room, so if somebody kept on, you know, did one punch but kept going, you just throw up an X at the sign. They went out and took them out of the house.
Oh.
And you get pretty good at discerning what's a hit. Like, you know, if you jump out and somebody's like, whoa, and then they hit you in the nose, that's not, you know, that's a reaction. That's not like a real hit. But like if you jump out and somebody's like, yeah, down, you know, like that's, you know, you want to take that person
Showing
out.
off for the girl they brought.
Yeah.
You guys need hazard pay and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
serious. It
Yeah.
sounds like you guys probably, you know,
Yeah.
Have you ever
gonna miss.
How many code yellows have you gotten?
A pretty good number, yeah.
What is that?
When somebody pees their pants because they're so scared.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We used to get them all the time in our butcher shop area.
Yeah.
Because they'd come to like the slop house, and at the very end, the chainsaw gets everybody. Run out with a chainsaw, roll up in their face, and then
Yeah.
tip a mop around the
That's
area.
sad. That's embarrassing for the
Well,
person.
and it's funny because like it's kids usually if it happens then you don't know until
Yeah.
late a few seconds later, and you smell something. You're like, oh, okay. So probably should call that in so it gets cleaned up. You know, you smell it. But it's funny, like when it happens to older adults, they always announce it. They're like, "Oh my god, I think I just peed," and they're like, "Yep, oh yeah."
You did.
So yeah, I should probably make a call because you know they have to stop the line and they have to just make sure that there's no fluids anywhere that they have to clean up and stuff
Probably
like that.
waste hazard, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
They
took
have.
half the episode to figure that out, but I was really, it was kind of like a burning question. I'm like, I've never done this before, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, this is the perfect types of questions to ask you guys when we're done, you know? So I
We
was
have
waiting.
yellow codes for pee and then green codes for puke.
People
There's
throw up?
yeah.
You have code browns too, but those don't happen nearly as often.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
That's when people poop. Then of course it's different with different haunts, but if there's ever a medical emergency and somebody bleeds, then that everything comes to a grinding halt because then they actually have to go in and sanitize.
One of our owners in Virginia was actually a firefighter / medic, so we had him on staff there every night. So if something happened, he knew what to do. He was an actor too. He was like one of the main actors at the grand finale. So if something happened, everything came to a halt. We had to stop the finale and go all the way back, and then restart everything back from the beginning, which, as you know, is a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize there was so much, you know, there really is quite a bit of, you know, I don't know, training, yes, but there's a lot of things you learn with experience that, you know, it's not just scaring, and there's a whole bunch more to it that I had no idea. I'm sorry.
There's a definite
Learning curve for new people, for sure.
Yeah, it's like that scare acting job. It is an interesting combination of acting and patience and being able to put up with the costuming and sweating and
figuring out what works for you.
Figuring out what works, yeah. And then it's funny because like you're constantly testing out different things. Usually takes you about a week or two until you figure out what works, and then after that, it's just, you know it works, and you can probably deliver every single time. And before that, you're just trying to, you test this out, doesn't work, test this out, doesn't work, and yeah, it's interesting.
Like, when I first started that Satanic Temple room, when I first started, I learned that I had to alter my mask, because originally I had fabric covering the eyes so they couldn't see my eyes, which in the dark, it was fine, but then you had the fog and the flickering lights, I couldn't see shit. I had to, like, call, like, a quick break and go out there and rip that fabric out. And then in the future, I just painted my eyes black, and then I had colored contacts that I threw in there. But I used to have a staff with this old tree root that we found that was super sturdy and mangled and everything, and I tied, like, a gopher skull to it, and I made it all crazy. I had that for a while until... So I would slam it down, and then I would go back to the altar and try and finagle it to where it wouldn't fall over when I let it against the wall, and it kept falling over. So I said, screw that, that's not working for me. Not doing that. And eventually, it took me about a week, like you said. I figured out, okay, I'm just going to wait here at the curtain. When they come in, I'm going to jump scare them. Have to be careful, because I had deer antlers coming out of my mask. So I can't lean forward too much. I'm going to poke somebody's eye out. I had to figure out how far I could lean forward, when to jump, what to listen for in the other room, to know when I need to get in place. Where to bring them, what to say, what to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It took about a week figuring out, because there were some groups that came through that it didn't do shit to. Other groups that came through that it affected, I had to pick and choose what I liked about what I did, and finally get my routine done.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a fun job. You go through it a couple of years in a row, and you definitely get burnt out on it. And then you take a year off, and then like, oh, I need to get back into that. Like, I miss it. So it's always like 3 or 4 years on for me, and then I'll take a year off and go visit haunts and see what I've been missing, and then get back into it for another 3 or 4 years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Being me, like, when I walk through, I don't realize all the depths of things that you guys have to go through in order to make that experience really pop for me, you know? I'm just used to, I'm scared, I'm scared, ah! And I don't really think about it, but now talking to you guys, I'm like, wow, there's really a lot there that I had no idea.
When we first started that house, it was started from scratch. We were just sitting there with a board. Okay, what do you guys want to do in this room? Because we had 40 plus rooms. It was a huge space. So we're just throwing out ideas. They're writing down whatever sticks to the wall and whatever they can finagle. So we just threw out ideas, and then we went with it. We had to build the rooms around our ideas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to do that one time.
Yeah, you should. It's funny because, like, I had a friend who was, she was traumatized of houses, I guess, and then I guess somebody recommended for her to work in a haunted house, and that's I met her in Catacombs at Halloween Horror Nights, and that was the first haunted house that she worked. And then at the end of the whole season, she was like now that I know the process of everything going through, she's like, now I'm not scared of going through these houses, which is true, because like if you think about it, if you like. For you going through a haunted house, you see the whole haunted house, the whole experience. It's a 7-minute scary thing, especially if you don't like houses. It's 7 minutes of just this grueling terror with things jumping out at you, but for the particular monsters, especially if it's not a Congo line, do your thing, you scare, and then once they're gone, you're waiting, you're looking around,
Take your mask off.
He's like, hey, talk to the next monster, blah, 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 and you're doing this, and getting a water break, and you see somebody coming, and you do it. So once she lived through that process of being behind the scenes, she was never scared of a haunted house again.
I don't know if I want to do that then.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of ruins it. It's kind of like a magician. Once you figure out how they do it, the luster's not there anymore. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it.
It's like
now.
watching a paranormal show and then doing a paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
They only show you the stuff that happens.
Right.
They don't show
100%.
you sitting in a room for eight hours just talking and nothing happening.
Right, yeah.
And the whole review process.
Yeah.
You don't see the 20-something hours you're watching,
If you're lucky, it's only 20 hours.
Yeah, really.
Hey, and that's very true. And then once you work a haunted house, you are always trying to chase that, that feeling of going through a house and being scared. Like a professional haunts, like you're not, other than the jump scare, you're not going to be scared because, going to Halloween Horror Nights, it's Universal Studios, right? There's a safety net of that. And then if you start going into independent haunts, especially like up in New Jersey out in the backwoods, then things start to get a little scarier, and because you just don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was one haunted house up there that did something pretty brilliant, and it's an old trick, back from the 1960s films where they're like, oh, this movie's so scary, you have to sign a waiver in case you have a heart attack. And so we walk up, and it's out in the middle of the woods, out in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, hey, how you doing? We're great. So, tickets, blah, blah, cash, and they're like, they go, okay, so just to let you know, this is on a chunk of farmland, and about 18 to 20% of the people that are on this land are homeless. We can't account for those people. Mm-hmm. So we just want to give you a heads up that during your the haunt experience, you might be encountering people that are not actors. And I was just like, whoa, wait a second. Like, and she's just rambling this off, and I'm like, did anybody else catch this? Okay, so like 20% of the people out there you're not accounting for, and they're homeless, and they're what? They're just like, and so I went into that haunted house being like, people jumping out at you and being scared, but that was all part of the act. And I don't know, liability-wise, and this was like in 2000, I don't know if they could do that anymore, but it worked because I was just like, holy crap, there's,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very ingenious.
Very cool.
Yeah. But still looking for that
high again.
Yeah, that experimental,
You know what I mean?
experimental haunted house. That
I mean, not even if you don't have to be a scare actor when you're in a haunt. Like in Virginia, we had an IT room because we had cameras in every single room. We'd sit there and make sure that nothing sketchy was happening, making sure all the patrons were acting appropriately, making sure the actors were acting appropriately, which is kind of hard to do sometimes. The clientele that brings, and. Managing the line and everything, you're just watching, okay, they're going to get scared, right? You got them! And you watch them jump up, and then you can still get that kind of high. You're not the person scaring, but you're like, haha, you got him.
Right.
So I wonder if you're like walking through the house, if you're thinking, if I was the IT guy, like where would I be looking for
I
the
know
next
where he's standing.
jump, Yeah.
Yeah, I do have issues of people like. I've gone through haunted houses since forever, right? And I still go through a haunted house, and walking into a room, it's just natural. I can discern that there's a drop panel, there's an actor, there's boom, 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 right? But like you're there in the house, you're part of the gig, right?
Yeah.
So like if there's a painting on the wall, I would take particular interest in the painting, and I'd be like, oh wow, like. Knowing that this actor is going to jump out at me, right? And they do jump out. And like, yeah, if you go through 100 haunted houses, still act scared and surprised. Like the actor jumps out, and I'm like, oh, holy crap, you got me. I was like,
there's nothing worse than being an actor
right.
and jump scaring somebody, they don't move, they just keep walking. You're like, oh. And like that totally ruins the next one coming through because you're down on yourself. Like I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Like don't be the guy, and I see this all the time. Walk through a house and he's just like, actor, weak. I see you. Good try. Try again. Don't do that. Right? It's just like you're in there for the fun. Do your part.
Be good patrons, people.
Yeah, be good patrons. Have fun with it. And it just makes for a better experience all around.
I always like to have the person that likes the scaredest in front every time. Like when we go to Halloween Horror Nights and stuff, there's always someone in our group that jumps and scares and screams, way more than anybody else. And I always put them right in front. Every time we go, I'm like, right here, guys. Go. So, I love that.
Yeah. What was cool about Virginia is we were wheelchair accessible. We made sure that the hallways were long, wide enough and everything. We even have like a wheelchair elevator to go up to the top.
That's cool.
So we were only ADA, I think it is. ADA? One of the ADA accredited houses in Virginia. Trying to do a VIP experience with somebody in a wheelchair is a little bit hard. Because with my VIPs, I'd bring them in and throw them in the pew. And I had two hoses that came out of that possum, one facing the pews and one facing up. And I could aim the one that I had. So I had to move the possum all together to rip it open and kick that siphon pump and spray the person with blood.
Nice.
Ooh.
Some of the VIP stuff couldn't really work because in the jail room that we had, our flamed out guy,
Mm-hmm.
like burned up, would come out and throw you in the electric chair. And there's a shock pad underneath the electric chair, so they'd sit you down and you feel like you're getting shocked.
Well,
Can't really do that with somebody in a wheelchair. You got to pull them out of the chair and throw them down,
Yeah.
put them back in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever heard of Dead City Collective?
No.
No, they're like a traveling group of demonic, demented clowns.
Dead City Collective.
Shout out to them. They're cool guys. They do live streams like this every week or so,
Mm-hmm.
and they come out. They put on like a sideshow kind of thing. Stitch is one of the guys. He does the fire breathing, and
That's cool.
some of them are just for the grotesque. They have one girl that has nasty pads or whatever, and she'll lick it and she'll shove it in people's faces.
Ugh, I don't know about that
It
one.
sounds cool. I'll look them up.
But that is
Where are they at?
They travel to the U.S.
Oh yeah. Huh. Very cool.
Like, we had people come from out of state just to see them, and we had them there for like 2 nights.
Right.
I think the furthest somebody came from California to Virginia to see them.
Oh wow. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Check them out. Dead City Collective.
But I think that can about wrap up our after show. It went on longer than we thought it would.
Yeah, sorry guys. We got in the conversation. We never came out. But thank you, Mike, for coming and
thank
talking
you
with us.
again.
Mike McGowan, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you
And,
again for
I
having me out here.
really
This has
appreciate
been fun.
House on Foggy Bluff.
That's
Check
right.
it out, Halloween season.
Right here in Melbourne, House on Foggy Bluff. Please come check us out. We doing online ticket sales now.
And that's houseonfoggybluff.com.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the only way to buy tickets. So if you want a ticket, go to houseonfoggybluff.com.
That is correct. 4 nights coming up the 23rd, the 24th, the 30th, and the 31st.
And tickets are $10.
$10, yep.
$10.
And it goes all to the restoration of the physical house, which is Green Gables.
Wear your
And,
mask. Bring your mask.
Yeah, make sure to wear your masks. Everybody's wearing masks in and going through the house. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's in the spirit of Halloween, so it's a haunted ghost walk.
That's
It's going to
awesome.
be a lot of fun.
Right, and if you want more details on that, go to our Facebook page, look at our live video, and we actually do a pretty in-depth conversation on haunts and paranormal stuff and House on Foggy Bluff.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in, guys,
Awesome.
and we will
Thank
see
you.
you in 2 weeks.
Take care, guys.
See ya.